Okay. Yeah, I can't come to your debate tomorrow night. I'm involved in another one, actually,
Right.
so I'd like to. But
I'd like to come to yours, too.
Well, we'll film them and we'll swap, right? Okay. So let me continue on here. Without God, there's no meaning and purpose. There's no reason, but that just means we're all alone in the universe. If God exists and He created us, He made our existence possible, why such a big place? I mean, do you have any idea how big the universe is? Why are we so privileged in this fairly standard solar system within this galaxy, of which there are millions, and in this vast enormity of space? Why did He go through so much effort for us? Much smaller universe, much more quaint universe, I think, would have sufficed. But it's absolutely huge. It's enormous. Why go through all that trouble? Is that for the afterlife? Are we going to travel around and see it? But it is very, very large for what we really need and for what any type of God would be able to tell us. There are so many different ways in which we can define who we are, how we got here, what value systems we should believe and practice. And many of the world religions, of course, offer this. Right? They answer what I call the Big Five. And the Big Five are essentially, what are the limitations of my knowledge? What can I know? Right? The fundamental epistemic question of philosophy. What can I know? What do I know? Right? And the second, of course, is, well, what am I? You know, what actually am I? The third is, why am I here? How did I get here? Why am I here? The fourth is, now that I'm here, how should I behave? And the fifth is, what is to come of me? When our ancestors developed consciousness and language capable enough to allow them to reflectively consider and ponder these very, very powerful questions, it helped to define them in specific ways. Dr. Craig answers them in a supernaturally way. His limitations of knowledge are limited by the scope and breadth of his understanding of critical and biblical exegesis. He is a physical and spiritual being. He's here because God wanted him to be here. How should he behave depends on his interpretation of scriptures. And depending on how he behaves, it answers the fifth question of what is to come of him in this life and after he dies. I answer them naturalistically. What are the limitations of my knowledge? They are limited, as Wittgenstein said, by my language and how I can symbolically represent my ideas. So mathematics and language and logic, context, syntax, all of these determine to what extent I can know anything. What am I? I'm a physical being. I'm a Homo sapiens sapien, evolved, split from a common ancestor, from a chimpanzee 5 to 7 million years ago in the African savanna. Prior to that, our ancestors were reptiles. Prior to that, fish. Prior to that, pond scum. Prior to that, stardust. Every atom inside your bodies was once inside a star. I think that's a pretty neat thing to know about ourselves. It's kind of interesting that we've been able to evolve cognitively to the point where we can actually figure stuff like that out. I think that's amazing. But we didn't do it through any particular book, which was the supposed revealed truth of a particular God. Our ancestors rolled up their sleeves and figured this out. Nothing told them to do that. It was their reason which allowed them to figure this out. And I think that's an amazing testament to humankind and to our abilities. And I'm not being prideful or boastful. I'm not practicing hubris. I'm just saying it's incredible that we are here tonight and that we have been able to figure that out about ourselves, that every atom inside your body was once inside a star. You're very old, believe it or not. The stuff that makes you will never go out of existence. Even after the heat death of the universe, there will still be stuff. There just won't be a lot of heat. That's all. My question to Dr. Craig, of course, is, so what? Why do you need purpose so much? Why do you need meaning? What are you scared of? Right? It takes a lot of guts to look into that abyss and say, yeah, so what? So what if we're all alone? Well, we'll make up the rules then. We'll get together and we'll figure out what's right and wrong. And don't ever, ever think for a second that science or Darwinism or evolution ever led to Auschwitz or Nazism or any of these godless horrors. It didn't. Idiotic humans did that. People who really didn't know what was going on in the world. And they were hateful and they were hurtful. And I think we could all agree that we don't tend to like people like that in our world. And that we can make up rules that will guide us and determine how it is we wish to behave towards one another. And I think that's important in and of itself. These are known as proximal values. Values we can get together. We don't need a basis in any kind of absolute truth of a particular type of God. We don't need that. We really don't. Not all world religions can be right, but they can all be wrong. And we need to remember this, that there are times at which people are going to put forward religious views about the existence of a God and why it matters so much in their lives and why it should matter in your life as well. But I've received no evidence here tonight of why I should change my particular views. It still doesn't really matter to me one way or the other, whether a particular God exists or not. Now, I'm just going to end here. I'm going to give you a little bit of an experiment, okay? I want you to think about something just for a second. This is to all the theists out there, okay? Just imagine for a second that your God doesn't exist. What does it change? Nothing. You're still here. You still love your family. You still love art and poetry and literature and music. You still care about the way in which politics is run. It doesn't change a thing, okay? So it doesn't matter. Thank you.